All right, I want to go over how to calculate slope from an equation, which we already talked about it on the board yesterday, but I told you all to work on A through H. Let's see if you got it correct. All right, so keep in mind when an equation is written in the form y equals mx plus b, then you can easily pick out the slope because your slope is attached to your x, or your slope will be the coefficient of x. But of course, y has to be by itself. So on A, y is already by itself. The slope is 3. B, y is already by itself. The slope is -2. You're just looking at the coefficient of x. C, y is already by itself. The coefficient of x is 2/3, so the slope is 2/3. D, y is not by itself, so I'm going to have to solve for y. I'm going to change the sign of -3x to +3x. So we end up with 2y equals to 3x plus 6. And then you can divide each piece by 2. So we get y equals to 3/2 x plus 3. Now the coefficient of x is 3/2, so the slope is 3/2. That's the coefficient of x. Therefore, that's the slope. On E, the simple thing to do is just to put your understood ones. It makes it really easy. So to get y by itself, I'm going to change the sign of 1x to -1x. So I end up with -1y equals to -1x minus 5. I'm going to divide everything by -1. So we'll end up with y equals to 1x plus 5. And the coefficient of x is a 1, or you can write it as an understood 1. It doesn't matter. So the slope is 1. F, to get y by itself, what I need to do is get rid of the 2x term. So I'm going to change the sign. If it's not attached, just change the sign. So you have -2y equals to -2x minus 40. Then you're just going to divide every term by -10. So you have y equals to 2/10 x plus 4. But instead of having a slope of 2/10, I'm going to simplify that to 1/5 for the slope. 2/10 isn't wrong, but we normally write our fractions in simplest form, okay? All right, G and H are one of the special ones. If you look at A through F, they each contain an x and a y. They're what we call two variable equations because they have two variables, an x and a y. But G and H don't have two variables yet. That's still linear. That's because on G, excuse me, that's because on G, this forms a horizontal line. I told you all about Hoy. Hoy is when you have only y equal to some number. Like here, I have y equal to -3. Your slope will be 0. So your slope is 0. H tells you what type of graph that will be. So if you were to graph y equals to -3, you would end up with some horizontal line. But your directions are asking you to find the slope. So basically, we just need to be concerned about a slope of 0. All right, so for G, H, it's one of the special ones. X variable with no y variable. So you're going to remember Vux. Here you have only an x equal to a number for your equation. So your slope is undefined. The U stands for undefined. And if you were to graph that, it would form a vertical line. But we're not concerned about I was about to put vertical graph. We're not concerned about the type of line or the graph at this moment. We're just concerned about the slope. So the slope here would be undefined. That's what you should have gotten for A through H when you calculated the slopes yesterday. All right, if you have a question, pause the video and call me over and I can help you, okay? All right, let's move down. Now we're going to learn about writing equations in slope-intercept form given a table of values, and it's very simple, okay? The first thing you're going to do from the table is calculate the change in y compared to the change in x. That means you're calculating the slope. So you're going to be using this formula. Just pick 2 points and calculate the change in y and change in x. And secondly, you're going to find the y-intercept or initial value by substituting your m. You're going to substitute your m and some point, okay? Any point. I don't care which point you choose, just pick a point. And then it says if there's an x value equal to 0, the y-intercept is the corresponding y value. So that's an important thing I need you to remember. If you have an x value equal to 0, you don't have to do a lot of work to calculate the y-intercept. It's just you look at the x value of 0 and look at the corresponding y, and that becomes your y-intercept. And I'm going to show you what I'm talking about on on A. So first of all, I'm going to calculate the slope. So that's the first thing. So I'm doing this, calculate the slope using the change in y with the change in x. All right, so I'm just going to pick 2 points. I don't care what 2 points, just pick 2. I'm going to pick these 2. So what are you doing from 1 to get to 0? You're subtracting 1. So the change in y is -1. And what are you doing to 0 to get to 2? Well, you're adding 2. So the change in x is 2. So I can tell easily that the slope is -1/2. Now, did you have to choose those 2 coordinates? You didn't. Any 2 coordinates will give you your slope. As long as it's in simplest form, all your slopes will be the same. All right, secondly, it says find the y-intercept, or what we call the initial value, by substituting m and x and y any point. And I should put substitute where? Okay. When I say substitute, I want you to write this, guys. I left it out. You're going to be substituting m and any point into y equals mx plus b. So when I say substitute m, you would take m out, which is your slope, change it to the number you got. So in this particular, I'm going to write it right here. I'm going to write this because I'm going to be substituting here. So I'm going to take m out, and I'm going to replace m with what I got, which is -1/2. And then it also tells you not only will you be substituting m, you need to substitute x and a y, which is any point. So you just pick a point. So I'm going to use an m of -1/2, and I'm going to pick a point from over here. So I'll pick the ordered pair 0 or 1. Okay? It doesn't matter. I could have picked 2, 0, 4, -1. Just pick any point. Any point from the table, just pick it. Okay? And that's going to be an x and a y. So m will come out, and in its place, -1/2 will go in. X will come out, and your x, the x that you chose from that point is 0. Oh, I need to take out y too. Sorry. Y will come out. Instead of writing y again, I'm going to put a y of 1. All right. And then it's plus b. So basically, I'm going to go back through this. I probably confused some people. Basically, these are the things that are coming out, guys. I'm going to do them in black. Y is coming out, and that's from right here. And x is coming out, so x is going to change, and m will be coming out. And you're going to leave b in because b represents your y-intercept, okay? B represents a y-intercept, or what we call the initial value. All right, so we're going to solve for b. So take out y is 1, m was -1/2, x was 0, plus b. Solve for b. So you have 1, and anything times 0 is 0, so b is equal to 1. So now I know that m is -1/2, b is 1, so I can write the equation y equals to negative 1/2 x plus 1. Because all you're doing is making sure that you're replacing, when you write your equation, you're replacing only m and b. M is 1/2, b is 1. So this is the equation of the points in that table. All right, now I want you to look at something. Go back up here, and I'm going to underline this in purple. If there is an x value of 0, and when you erase this, if there is an x value of 0, and there's an x and there's an x value of 0, the y-intercept is the corresponding y value. Okay, what is the corresponding y value? Well, the corresponding y value is 1. So I could have told you that b was equal to 1 just by saying, oh, there's an x of 0, and the corresponding y value is 1, so b is 1. Not every table will have an x of 0. If it does, then it's really easy to find your y-intercept, guys. It's just whatever the corresponding y value is. If it doesn't have it, you got to do this work. All right, let's take a look at b. B, we're going to follow the steps again. Find the slope. M equals to the change of y over the change of x. And let's choose these 2 points. I don't care which 2 you choose. I'm just choosing 2. All right, so what do we do to get from negative 12 to negative 18? Well, we're subtracting 6. So that's negative 6. And what are you doing to get from 2 to 3? You're adding 1. So the slope here is negative 6. All right, and then the thing is we got to find b. So what does b equal? Okay, to find b, you can look for x of 0, but clearly you don't see an x of 0 in this chart. Okay, so you can't do the shortcut method. So what I would do is choose a point. So I pick a point. I'm going to pick the point 1, negative 6. Well, 1 is an x and negative 6 is a y. And I'm going to plug all of this into y equals mx plus b. So y is going to change to negative 6. Okay. Equals to m. Well, m is negative 6 times x. Well, x is positive 1 plus b. So if you don't have an x of 0, you just got to plug in an m, and x, and a y so you can solve for your b. So you get negative 6 equals to negative 6 plus b. Well, to solve for b, I got to get rid of that negative 6. I'm going to add 6 to both sides. So I know b is equal to 0. So my equation would be y equals to, and it's in the form y equals mx plus b. So it's going to be y equals to m. What is m? M is negative 6. It's negative 6x plus 0. But a lot of times we don't write the plus 0 if the y-intercept is 0. So instead of writing y equals to negative 6x plus 0, we just simply write y equals to negative 6x. So we say instead of the equation being in what we call y equals mx plus b form, it's just y equals mx form, okay? The plus b is a 0. When you see y equals mx form, that means you automatically, know your b is 0, so you don't write it. So you just leave it like that, okay? If that doesn't make sense, please pause the video and let me know. All right, you pause the video and try C. All right, this is what you should have. First of all, I'm going to find the slope. I'm going to pick 2 points. Let's just go with these two. Doesn't matter what two. So I'm going to calculate the change of y versus the change of x. What am I doing to 1 to get to -3? Well, I'm subtracting 4. 1 minus 4 gives me -3. And what am I doing to -1 to get to +1? So I'm adding 2. -1 plus 2 is 1. So here I see the slope is -3 over 2. Now, the shortcut would be to look for an x of 0. But none of these have an x of 0. So I can't use a shortcut. So I need to go back to find b by using y equals mx plus b form and substituting your y, your m, and your x. But I need a point. So I'm just going to pick a point. So I'm going to pick the point 3, -7. All right, that's x and that's y. So y changes to -7. M is -3 over 2. X is 3. I'll put 3 over 1 plus b. All right, so now I'm going to solve for b. Top times top with the fractions gives me -9. And bottom times bottom with those two fractions gives me 2. But I don't like -9/2, so I'm going to change this. Half of 9 is 4.5. So I'm going to change that to -4.5. Looks better. Now I can solve for b. I'm going to change the sign of -4.5 to +4.5. So basically that's 7.0 minus 4.5. Regroup. So that's -2.5. So now I know that when I write my equation, I can replace m with -3 over 2, and I can replace b with -2.5. So I write y equals to -3 over 2 x minus 2.5. Now you can put plus -2.5 if you want to. So some of you may prefer to write it like this. Okay. Now I'm going to do something. You don't have to do this. You don't have to write this down, but I'm going to erase this and show you. If I wouldn't have changed 9/2 to a fraction, I would have had to have found a common denominator. So I would have put this thing over 1, and I would have realized the common denominator between 1 and 2 is 2. So I would have multiplied both of these by 2. That gives me -14/2 equals to -9/2 plus b. And you can also work with it this way. Add 9/2 to both sides. These cancel. So -14/2 plus 9/2 is -5/2, or -2.5. Okay? So the equation could have also been written like this, guys, instead of -2.5 for b. Just, you can write it as a decimal or leave it as a fraction. If you leave them as a fraction, you're going to have to find common denominators, okay? All right, let's take a look at D. I want you to pause the video and try D on your own. All right, so for D, I'm going to find the slope by using the change in y over the change in x. So I'm going to pick 2 points. Well, I'll pick these two. So I'm going to add 2 to 5 to get to 7. So that's 2. I'm going to add 3 here to get from 0 to 3. So I know my slope is 2/3. And then secondly, I can try to find b by using a shortcut. So look in your x column and see if you have an x of 0. Okay, there is an x of 0 right there. I'm going to do it in red. If you have an x of 0, look at the corresponding y, and it will give you your y-intercept, your b, or your initial value. So now I don't have to do any of that extra work. I can just write the equation y equals to, and let me write this down. It's going to be in the form y equals mx plus b. So now all I have to do is replace m with 2 over 3 and replace b with 5. So it's y equals 2/3 x plus 5. I'm done without doing all the extra work. But you can only use that shortcut to find b if you have an x value of 0, okay? I actually taught you all that last year. I don't know if you remember. You probably don't. All right, you all pause the video and try E. All right, this is what you should have. Okay, find M by calculating the change in Y compared to the change in X. And I'll choose these 2 points. So 3 minus 1 will give me 2. So the change in Y is -1. And 0 plus 1 will give me 1. So the change in X is 1, meaning my slope is -1. And then as far as B is concerned, I'm going to be looking for a shortcut first. Let's see. There's an x of 0. There's my x of 0. So my corresponding y is 3. So B is 3. So all I do is write my equation in slope-intercept form. And when I do that, all I'm going to be doing is replacing m with -1 and b with 3. So the equation looks like this. Y equals -1x plus 3. That's the equation. Let's take a look at F. F is kind of like a real life problem where you got to find the equation of what's in this table. So let's read and see what it's talking about. Jonique exercises using an exercise ball every day. Okay, let's see what she starts out doing. She starts out with a short warm-up. So we know initially there's a warm-up. And that's what you expect when you exercise. Most people warm up. Then she increases her workout time each day, okay? All right, so let's take a look at what's in the table. I have the number of days or the day, and then the total number of minutes on the exercise ball. So on day 1, she spends 13 minutes on the exercise ball. Day 2, she spends 21 minutes. Day 3, she spends 29 minutes. 4, 37. So we can see that she's working her way up and in some type of increments, okay? So it says, write which equation below can be used to represent the pattern of data in the chart. So I just need to find an equation. And notice that all these equations are in slope-intercept form. So I'm going to calculate slope by doing the same thing, finding the change in y over the change in x. I'm just going to pick 2 points. I'm going to pick these 2. So what am I doing at 13 to get to 21? Well, I'm adding 8. So the change in y is 8. All right, what am I doing to 1 to get to 2? Well, I'm adding 1. So I can tell that the slope is 8. Now, what does that 8 actually represent? I told you if it was real life, you have to tell me what it represents. You just can't put 8. So let's just take a look at our variables. So one variable is in the unit day, and one variable is in the unit minutes, number of minutes. So days and number of minutes. And it's total number of minutes on the exercise ball. Basically, how many minutes is she exercising? Okay, the number of minutes that she exercises depends on what day it is, because if her days start to increase, the number of minutes start to increase. So like as you can see on day 1, she spent 13 minutes. Day 2, she spent 21. Day 3, she spent 29, okay? So the number of minutes depend on the day. The more days, the more she increases her minutes, all right? So this has to be first, and then that has to be second. So in other words, the number of minutes she exercises depends on the amount of days. More days, then she spends more minutes. Less days, she spends less minutes. Remember, she's increasing her workout time every day, okay? So it's 8, has to be 8 minutes, since this is in terms of minutes and this is in terms of days. Remember, it's the Y before the X. Okay, the Y represents minutes, right? And X represents days or day. So I can write 8 minutes per day. Now, 8 minutes per day. But she doesn't spend 8 minutes per day on there. And if that were true, this would have been 8 instead of 13. This would have been 8 instead of 13. That would have been 8 instead of 13. Actually, what that 8 represents is that, let me take the D off. She increases her workout time by 8 minutes per day. So I'm going to put in front of this, she increases her workout time by, and then of course it's 8 minutes per day. I don't like the way it's all bunched up, guys. That looks so much better. Okay, that's what that means. It's not the number of minutes she spends on there per day. It's her increase. And you need to go back and read to make sure you clearly understand that it says she increases her workout time each day. So it's minutes per day, but it's an increase of minutes per day. Okay, an increase of 8 minutes per day, guys. Okay, that's what the slope means. But I know you all know the answer with which equation. The answer is D, because it's the only one that has a slope of 8. It has a slope of 5, 9, and that has a slope of 7. This is the only one that has a slope of 8. But I'm going to finish it out and actually show the calculation for B. All right, so to get B, which we can tell by this equation is 5. But to get it, all you have to do is use your slope of 8 and pick a point. I'm going to pick the point 113. I'm going to use that. So that's an X and that's a Y. And I'm going to plug into the equation. Y equals mx plus b. I'm going to change y to 13, m to 8, x to 1, and solve for b. So I'm actually showing the work. Sorry, didn't mean to put 5. Subtract 8 from both sides. 13 minus 8 is 5. So that's why we can say that the equation is y equals to 8x plus 5. Okay, anybody know what that 5 represents? 5 is your y-intercept, or what we call the initial value. The initial value is what somebody starts with. Okay, what does she start with? So I'm going to go back. Keep in mind the number 5, but it's the initial value. So what does she start with? She starts with a short warm-up. Okay? So it says initially there is a warm-up. This 5 represents her initial value, what she starts with. So 5 what? What is that? What she start with? People start with a warm-up. So five warm-ups? No. it's a 5-minute warm up. So when you have this equation, y equals to 8x plus 5, I could put Jonique, because it says, what does the slope mean in the problem? Okay, I'm going to write the whole equation. What does the whole equation mean? What does the equation mean in terms of M and B? Okay? I'm just not going to do M. So Jonique, I'm going to say Jonique starts each day with a, that's what she starts with. That's her initial value, with a 5-minute warm-up. Then she increases, would help if I spell it right, increases her workout time by 8 minutes each day. And you can go back to your table and check it and see. For 13 on day 1, that means she started with a 5-minute warm-up and then she increased it by 8. On day 2, she started out with a 5-minute warm-up, but and she increased at 13 because this was 13. She increased 13 by 8 again. So that would be, now make sure I get this right, 18. Okay, I see it. This is her warm-up. She increased 13 by 8. And something is still off if she starts with a 5-minute warm-up every day. Oh, never mind. I got it. Because in that 13 is already, the 5 minutes is already in that 13. Oh, I was questioning myself. See, the 5-minute warm-up is already included in the 13. So all I'm doing is just increasing it by 8 minutes every day. So now I increase this by 8 minutes. And keep in mind, this already includes my 5-minute warm-up. So when you increase it by 8 minutes, you get 21 minutes, okay? So that 5-minute warm-up is already calculated because that's how we got 13. I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, pause the video and call me over. But again, that 5-minute warm-up is in this 13 minutes. So when I write 13, that still includes the 5 minutes. And the 5 minutes plus the 8 minutes the first day and 8 minutes the second day makes 21 minutes, okay? This is the 8-minute increase, guys. So this 13 has a 5-minute warm-up, 8 minutes for the first day, and this is the 8-minute increase for the second day. I hope that makes sense. And it just continues to add 8 minutes every day, but the 5-minute warm-up is still there. All right. Like I said, if you don't understand that, just pause the video and then I'll try to come over and explain it one-on-one. All right, thanks, guys.